Now, I want to finish off Pesach. Talking about Pesach, I'm finishing off Pesach. I have a recording from Rabbi Yisrael Shmotkin, who was by 8 years by the Seder of the Rebbe, singing a lot of the Shvei HaMoscha. The second half of the Seder, the Rebbe used to sing a very special tune. And the people who were there describe it as being, there was nothing like it in the whole year. The Rebbe was in Dvekas, he was in his own world. And he would sing slowly Shvei HaMoscha with a tune. It's a very, very special tune that the Rebbe used to sing. And sometimes the whole Olam finished singing, and the Rebbe was still saying. He would say very slow, with a Gwaldika Dvekas, the second half of the Seder. So last year at a Pesach, I got Rabbi Shmotkin to sing pieces of it. He didn't sing the whole thing, because he doesn't remember. And to make it up, he knows the trup, but exactly how the Rebbe sang, and I'm sure each year was a little different. So I'm willing to send it to you if anybody has an interest. I'm into being mefarsh of this. You're hearing a chassid describing how the Rebbe said the second half of the Haggadah. But it would be very nice if the girls could listen to it. It's about 15 minutes, and he describes it. He doesn't just sing it. He describes the whole scene forward. Anyway, so after the Seder, the Rebbe used to put the wine back in Kos Shel Bracha, which was a whole ceremony. It took him 10 minutes. The Rebbe had the cup of Eliyahu, which was made of glass. Don't ask me why. His own becher and the bottle. And he'd pour from one to the next, to the next, to the next. The whole ceremony. The Rebbe used to put the wine back. And the whole time, the Olam used to sing Keliyata. So after the Rebbe went down from upstairs to his office, the Bochum would continue singing Keliyata. And in the early years, they say the Rebbe stood by his door, and the Bochum were dancing and singing Keliyata like it's a march. The Rebbe was encouraging them to think. I even think there's a story that the Rebbe once joined in the dance, in the Erste Yad from Keliyata, but I didn't look and I don't remember. But the niggin of the night of Pesach was Keliyata for this reason. Then when the years that the Rebbe made the Seder by the Rebbe Tzemach HaMedina, he used to Farbrengen upstairs in the Zal. Till Kos Shel Bracha, the second night Pesach, the Rebbe made a Farbrengen. The Farbrengen, Rabbi often said it went till about 4:15. He said it went. My father told me that he remembers waiting till Aleza Shachar. They're supposed to drink a little water, Pasha. Anyway, Pesach Bechlal was not that eventful. Pesach was not Sukkos. Sukkot, the first 20 years, there were many Farbrengens. The last bunch of years, there was Sichos every night. Pesach was quieter by the Rebbe. The Rebbe Farbrenged Tafshin Lamed Beis. When the Rebbe turned 70, he Farbrenged the first day Pesach, the second day Pesach, the seventh day Pesach, and the eighth day. All days of Yom Tov. Farbrenged at 1:30 in the afternoon, the Rebbe made a Farbreng. But as I Pesach, I don't think there were Farbrengens. I don't even think there was Farbrengen Shabbos Chol HaMoed Pesach. The highlight of Pesach was the rally for the children. Now, as kids, you have to understand, till Tivus Hashem. Tivus Hashem is Memalef. Memalef, I was already by mitzvah. So my childhood is before Tivus Hashem. There was a rally Chanukah. We all went to the Chanukah rally. There was a rally at the end of the summer when the kids came back from camp. And there was rally Pesach. These rallies really were not made for us. They were made for the release time children who were going to public school, who joined the release time program, and they would get them to come to 770 on a Sunday of Chanukah, Sunday of Pesach, and the Rebbe would come down and talk to them. If you had Seichel and you were around, you joined. You understand? Once Tivus Hashem started, the Rebbe started making rallies for our children. If you look at Tivus Hashem, the first few years, Mem Aleph, Mem Beis, Mem Gimel, the Rebbe had 10 rallies a year. For almost 10, almost once a month, the Rebbe spoke to the children of Tivus Hashem. He found reasons to talk to the kids. Chol HaMoed Pesach, there was a rally. But that's it. That's all there was. There wasn't a lot happening here. Now, Shvi Shel Pesach is one of those times that we stay up all night, right? And the night between Shvi Shel Pesach and Acharon She Pesach, we go into Halucha, and Matzah Pesach, there was a Farbrengen. So, first of all, this is just like Yishmak Eveltele, it's very sweet. The Friedrich Rebbe writes in the Sichos that by the Rabbeim, the happiest day of the year was Shvi Shel Pesach. Not Simchas Torah, not Purim, not Yiddish Kislev. Shvi Shel Pesach was the happiest day of the year. So once by this Uddis upstairs, a man says to the Rebbe, how did we see by the Rebbe the Shver, how did we see by the Friedrich Rebbe that the happiest day of the year was Shvi Shel Pesach? So the Rebbe tells him, I don't understand, you were there, you saw. Why are you asking me? You were there, you saw. So he says to the Rebbe, that's exactly why I'm asking, because I didn't see anything. I didn't see the Rebbe was happy in Shvi Shel Pesach. So the Rebbe said, I want to ask you a question. It says in Kabbalah that on Shabbos there's Aliyah Se'elamis, the words go up to a higher level. Do you see that? You don't see that, yeah? But it doesn't mean it's not happening. I mean, you don't see it. So why should you be surprised that the Rebbeim's happiest day of the year by the Rebbeim is Shvi Shel Pesach, and you're not zeichet to see it? Now, I don't know why Shvi Shel Pesach is the happiest day of the year, but I have a svara. That's all I have is a svara. It says in Tanya for Kisvei Arizal that all neshamas are conceived on Shmini Atzeres, and all neshamas are born on Shvi Shel Pesach. In other words, just like a baby goes through a cycle of pregnancy, the neshama of that baby has to go through a cycle of pregnancy also. And the ibur neshamas, the conception of those neshamas from that world that are coming into this world, starts on Shmini Atzeres, and they're born, exactly what this means I don't know, but they're born Shvi Shel Pesach, and that may be the reason why, but the fact is that it says in the Siches that Shvi Shel Pesach B'Dreim was a very, very freilich day. So just a shtickle vort, that the Talucha started, going to the shuls to speak Chassidus officially with large groups started around 1955, Tafshin Tezvov. Rabbi Zellickson has a whole kuntis where he tells the history of the Taluchas. The first few years, the Baruch was 770. So once, Shvi Shel Pesach in the afternoon, it was the last minute of Shvi Shel Pesach, going into Achat Shel Pesach, the Rebbe said, Shvi Shel Pesach is Moshe Rabbeinu's tug. Acharon Shel Pesach is Moshiach's tug. Right? Shvi Shel Pesach is Moshe Rabbeinu's day, Ki is Yom Tov. Acharon Shel Pesach is Moshiach's day, because it's connected to the Haftarah of Moshiach, Eida Yeh B'nei Vlamed, and in Chassidus, by the Baal Shem Tov, there was a Sudas Moshiach, and so on. So the Rebbe said, Al kol ponim, says in a Beit Define Yidden, be that as it may, Moshe Rabbeinu and Moshiach are both wonderful Jews, so the Rebbe said you should use the minutes, you shouldn't waste the time, you should use the minutes well. Acharon Shel Pesach is marked by an extra Suda, right? Our custom is that Acharon Shel Pesach we have 3 meals even if it's not Shabbos. Correct? From Jews eat 3 meals on Shabbos, you know that, right? Friday night, Shabbos morning, and something called Chol HaMoed. Some Lubavitchers don't even know that it's a part of the Jewish religion. It's a din of Shulchan Aruch, it's a Gemara, it's in a Yom. You're supposed to eat Shalosh Sudas. But Yom Tov, you don't have to have 3 Sudas. Yom Tov, you have only 2. So by the Rebbe, every single Yom Tov was a Suda at the end of Yom Tov. Matzah Rosh Hashanah was a Suda, Matzah Sukkot was a Suda, Matzah Pesach was a Suda, and Matzah Shavuos. At the end of Yom Tov, the Rebbe made a Farbrengen, which started about 15 minutes before the Shkia. Before Lichbenchen, they would come in, they would wash, and there's videos of the Rebbe washing. You see the Rebbe wash? You ever see the video of the Rebbe washing? What does he do first thing? He looks at his nails. He looks at his nails, cleans his nails. Then the Rebbe has a big quart, and he takes it with a towel. He puts from his right hand into his left hand, and he pours 1, 2, 3 on his right hand. Then he takes the towel in his right hand, he pours 1, 2, 3 on his left hand, and the third time, he makes his hand into a little cup like this here. He puts the kvart down and he starts making the bracha, and then he rubs his hands together. It says in Minhagim that as you're saying the bracha, you take the little water and you rub the shifshuv. The way the Rebbe dried his hands is interesting. He used to dry each finger like this. There's videos. He wasn't OCD. They didn't dry. Because, people confuse wet and cold. You put cold water on your hand is dry, but they feel cold, so you're still using the towel because Mustama it's wet. The Rebbe dried his hands. The Rebbe was not OCD about anything. The Rebbe washed, and then the Rebbe used to cut the challah. He put on 2 challahs, and the Rebbe always put them side by side, didn't put one on top of the other. In the later years, the Rebbe kam cut the challah. I mean, as a child, the Rebbe used to cut the challah almost all the way through, and then tear it a little bit. And then he would cut twice. He would cut and tear it in half, then cut it again for a smaller piece. But in the later years, Mamish Rebbe come use the knife. He didn't want to use the knife. He barely used the knife. He would cut a drop and then he would rip the challah. In the earlier years, he would cut the challah more, and then Rebbe would dip in salt. Of course, Pesach, there's no bread. There's matzah.
With a knife.
With a knife?
Yeah.
Of course we don't know. The assumption is, the Friedrich Rebbe Bachal didn't use a knife. I think maybe he only used a spoon. The Rabbeim are they stechenish. The Friedrich Rebbe, I think he ate only with a spoon. The Rebbe used a fork. But a knife is a cherev. The Rabbeim, even though it says in Zeir, you're supposed to eat bread with a knife. But the Rebbe was makel in that Indian. But Pesach was an interesting tzir. The Rebbe sat down. The matzah was there before he came, in a brown bag, the same brown bag that the matzahs come. The Rebbe would wash. He took the matzah out, he would dip it in salt, and he would put the matzah on top of the paper. You understand? The Rebbe's cake at the Farbrengen was covered with a shmata. and the cake that the Rebbe ate was in a little bit of a napkin. But Pesach, to show that Acharon She Pesach were not nizid in Shruya, the Rebbe took the matzah and put it on top of the bag. It should be, you should be able to see the matzah. And as I told you many times, by Farbrengens, the Rebbe didn't eat much, at least in my years. At the beginning of the Farbrengen, the Rebbe ate a whole kazayas. At the very end of the Farbrengen, before he benched, he would eat again a whole kazayas, a big kazayas of matzah, and drink also water. But during the Farbrengen Kamat, he didn't touch it. But watching the Rebbe eat matzah was hard. The Rebbe had no teeth. The Rebbe didn't have a single tooth in his mouth. How do you eat matzah without teeth? How do you talk without teeth? But the Rebbe was hard. The Rebbe ate matzah. It's like, but the Rebbe ate matzah a whole year. And the Das Tachtenik can say he ate matzah to keep his gum strong enough. He's supposed to eat matzah on Pesach. I don't know if that's the reason. It was one of those things. It was a miracle that you saw every minute of every day and night. And there are certain things about the Rebbe which make no sense. His control over his goof was like by Avraham Avinu. You know, there's 5 Eivorim that a person has no control of. And Avraham Avinu, when the Eibush gave him the hay, Avraham, so it's Reish Memchas, it was his shlita in those 5 Eivorim. But the Rebbe's control over his goof was godly. It wasn't mind over matter. It was you could not explain it. But anyway, and the Rebbe drank Dalet Kaisis, where the Rebbe Rashab, 1 year, it's a whole story. The Rebbe Rashab, the Friedrich Rebbe went over to the Bacharim 1 year, Samach Vov actually it was, and he told the Bacharim that if they go over to the Rebbe Rashab and invite him to eat the Sudas Moshiach with them, maybe the Rebbe will listen. So the Kupas Bachurim, the Bacharim who used to raise money to help the other Bacharim with no money, approached the Rebbe Rashab and they asked him to come to the Suda, so he came. And he said, by that Suda, Das is Sudas Moshiach. And he said they should give the Bacharim Dalet Kaisis of wine from the yeshiva. Because it says in Sfar, the Moshiach comes, there's also going to be Dalet Kaisis. Just like by Yitzis Mitzrayim, by Yitzesi, Yitzalti, V'galti, V'lakachti, Moshiach, there's also going to be Dalet Kaisis. And Acharon She Pesach, we drink 4 cups of wine to respond to the Dalet Kaisis, which is going to be when Moshiach come. And the Rebbe said they should come from the yeshiva. So the Dalet Kaisis from the Rebbe Rashab, Tem Chetmimim. Kol Yetz Miskektet to Moshiach, Kol Yetz Mechamas Bez David. So that year the Rebbe did it. The following year the Rebbe did it. And the 3rd year they invited the Rebbe to come. The Rebbe Rashab, he said, I'm afraid I'm going to come and make a chazaka. So one of the Brachim, or the Talmud Chacham, told him that according to Rebbe, it's a machlekes in the Gemara, how many times is the chazaka? But according to Rebbe, 2 times the chazaka, and the Rebbe Rashab is a Rebbe. So 2 times is the chazaka. So the Rebbe, I don't think he did it every year, but the Rebbe Rashab said in Tov Reish Samach Vov that in addition to the matzah, they should give the Bachim wine, and the wine should come from Tem Chetmimim. And he said, Das is Sudas Moshiach. The Rebbe Farbrengen every year Sudas Moshiach, and this I remember, everybody came to 7 matzah and wine, and you would go over to the Rashag, give him your bottle, and he give it back to you. Because you wanted that the wine should be from Tem Chetmimim. The Rebbe said the wine should be from the yeshiva. So the Rashag was the Manal Peil, he was in charge of Tem Chetmimim. So a lot of people would walk over to the Rashag, they'd hand him the bottle, he would hand it to you back. So you had wine from Tem Chetmimim for the Dalet Kaisis of Acharon She Pesach. The Acharon She Pesach's Farbrengen didn't go the longest. Shavuos was longer, because the Rebbe was worried about Sfiras HaOymed. The Rebbe wanted to do Sfiras HaOymed before Chatzos, before midnight. I'm not saying he always did, but the Rebbe tried to. Chatzos was at 1 o'clock, and Sfiras HaOymed is after Ma'ariv. After Ma'ariv is after benching. You understand? There was the middle of a Seudah. The Rebbe used to wash before the Shkiyah. But the Farbrengen was pretty long. What was
it about?
Pesach, whatever they wanted to talk about. The Rebbe had his topics, but ostensibly it was about Pesach. I think Pesach already, the Rebbe sometimes started talking about the summer and about Chinuch, but Shavuos was always about Chinuch and about the summer. So the Rebbe talked all kinds of inyanim. I just want to say this to you. The Erste Yaren, there were Giluyim that the later years he didn't have. The first few years, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, you could see it in the Anachas. The Rebbe said, that the Friedrich Rebbe said about Moshiach, Moshiach is standing right behind the door. And they used the Lashon. The Zakeh Hara'ois, the people with very pure eyes, could already see Moshiach. And the Rebbe said that there's something called a Moshiach's dance. I don't know if he said that it was earlier Rebbeim, or it was his own idea, a dance of Moshiach. And the first couple of years, in the middle of Farbrengen of Acharon She Pesach, the Rebbe got up and he danced. They would sing Yezher Yitzchak Lapti. That was the only happy song in the Babish in those days. They would sing Yezher Yitzchak Lapti, and the Rebbe would dance, and the Rebbe called it Moshiach's dance. And the Rebbe said Moshiach is dancing with us. He didn't do it for very long, but for the first few years. The Rebbe himself said that in Acharon She Pesach, there's the Gilui Ed of Moshiach, and there's the Inyan of Moshiach's dance, and Moshiach himself is dancing with us. This was a Inyan by the Rebbe. You can see it in Anochas. I don't know how many times the Rebbe did it, but it certainly did not happen in my days. This was Acharon She Pesach. This is basically what happened at Acharon She Pesach. And then, of course, the Farbrengen would finish. And I guess I should tell you that if Shmini Atzeres, if Acharon She Pesach was on Friday, right? Acharon She Pesach, could Acharon She Pesach be Friday? Make the cheshbon. If Acharon She Pesach is Friday, that means the first day Pesach is Friday. It can't be Friday. Lei Bedu Pesach. It can't be Friday. Lei Bedu Pesach. Pesach cannot start on Friday, so can't finish on Friday. But on the other Yom Tov, Simchas Teira, l'mashal, if it was Erev Shabbos, then we used to make a short Farbrengen on Friday night, and then the next day he made a longer Farbrengen. Anyway, so the Rebbe used to wash, come in for the Shkia, he would wash. And after the Rebbe would wash, the Rebbe would turn to the Gabbai. In my days it was Matal Talashevsky, and he would nod, and he would get up and he would say, the Rebbe soll gesund sein, hat gebeten, ausrufen. The Rebbe said to announce, die alle, was haben sich nicht gewaschen, können sich jetzt gehen waschen. Those who didn't wash can go wash now. And I remember one guy would get up after the Rebbe made the announcement, and we all washed before. You brought matzah from your house and you washed. The Rebbe finished the Farbrengen, then the Rebbe benched, the Rebbe would bench. And before the Rebbe benched, the Gabbai would again get up. And again, in the earlier years it was Zalman Duchman. I don't remember Zalman Duchman. In minor years, Matal Talashevsky, and he stopped doing it with Shia Pinson. He would get up and would say, Itzte v'de Seder zayin azay. Now the Seder is going to be as follows. Frie v'de Rebbe zol gesund zayin bench. First the Rebbe is going to lead the bench. Danach we're daven in Meirev. And then we're going to daven in Meirev. And noch Meirev v'de Rebbe zol gesund zayin machen Havdalah. And he said it with so much trup. It was like announcing that Moshiach is here, you know. Then we're going to Rebbe zol gesund zayin is going to make Havdalah. Und danach wird der Rebbe soll gesund sein geben Kos Shel Bracha. Then the Rebbe soll gesund sein and give Kos Shel Bracha. Und me beta soll sein mit Seder. We're asking that people should behave. This is a regular announcement. And there's some cute stories about this announcement, but I'll save them for a different time. So the Rebbe benched. Now a Ma'ariv and give Kos Shel Bracha. Now I don't know what I did Tishri, but I want to talk about Kos Shel Bracha. Maybe I already said this, but I'm going to say it again, okay? When I was a little boy, I guess it's till Lamed Ches, the Rebbe would stand and give wine by Kos Shel Bracha, just like you see in the films and the pictures, okay? But directly in front of the Rebbe was the path to walk out. Meaning, you got Kos Shel Bracha from the Rebbe, you were on a table. Except then you had benches. May they rest in peace. Those benches no longer exist. They were wood benches. And they would line them four abreast, four across, from the table with the Rebbe Farbrengen till the end of the shul. And you would get wine from the Rebbe, and you would step down, and you would walk backwards away from the Rebbe. After Lamed Ches, they changed it. When you got wine from the Rebbe, you continued walking straight. So you were going away from the Rebbe. In other words, it used to be that you got Kos Shel Bracha, you would step away from the Rebbe, and you could follow the Rebbe with your eyes all the way till you walked out of the shul. And then later they changed it. Now I don't know why they changed it. Mistaba they changed it because they thought it was going to be quicker for his time. But this is a fact. When I was a little kid, my father used to tell me, and I couldn't understand why he told me to do it. I felt it was so unrealistic. My father told me like this. I was a boy, and I had a brother, Gezunzai. We went to the Rebbe to get Kos Shel Bracha. My father would say to me, when the Rebbe gives you wine, don't walk away. Make a baby agofen, sip the wine, and say l'chaim to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is going to answer you l'chaim for the bracha. I never was able to do it. My father always did it.
Why did he push you away?
I'll tell you why. I couldn't hold cup. No, they didn't really push you away. I couldn't keep my head. The way the Rebbe gave Kos Shel Bracha, I always tell you the same thing, that when you met the Rebbe, the most important moment was the eyes. Boom. When the Rebbe touched you with his eyes, it was a lukus. So when you came to the Rebbe for Kos Shel Bracha, the first thing the Rebbe did was look at you. He looked you straight through you. It was a very quick look, but it was a look. And you didn't want to miss that. On the other hand, you're holding a cup, a little kelishik, it's not a very big cup, and you don't want the Rebbe to miss. He pours it into your cup. So you're conflicted between looking at the Rebbe and looking at your cup. So many times, you would look at the cup for a split second, and by the time you look back up, the Rebbe wasn't looking at you anymore, he was looking at the cup. You had to hold cup. You had to hold the cup in your hand, and to hold your head, that when you walk up to the Rebbe, the first thing you do is you look into the Rebbe's eyes, because the first thing the Rebbe would do is look at you. Then the Rebbe looked down at your cup, and he said, as he poured into the cup, the Rebbe would say L'chaim v'levracha to each person. L'chaim v'levracha. Some people came with multiple cups, they would say L'chaim v'levracha to each one. The Seder before my times, and you can see it in the videos, and you can see it in the pictures even. The crowd was smaller. The Rebbe had more time. Kos Shel Bracha was much slower paced. In my days, if you stopped the Rebbe Kos Shel Bracha, there were 5 guys who would drag you out like a chves nishvos. In the olden days, you could stop at Kos Shel Bracha and talk to the Rebbe. And the normal Seder was, I would say for the first 20 years for sure, the people who are older than I am, I'm 57, the guys who are 65, 70, were raised like this. When you got Kos Shel Bracha from the Rebbe, that was the Seder. The Rebbe gave you wine, and then he gave the next guy wine. You stood there, you didn't walk away. You made the bracha me'priagafen, you sipped it, and you would lean over, and as the Rebbe is pouring wine to other people, you would say l'chaim, and the Rebbe would answer you again, l'chaim v'levracha. This was normal. This was normal, and I'm assuming this is why the path to walk away was right there, because people stood there for a while. There was a little bit of a crowd. In other words, the Rebbe is pouring wine to the next person, or even 2 people later, you're still there. And the Vada Masal didn't drag you away like a shmate. It was understood that after the Rebbe gives you wine, you would rather make a bracha, sip the wine, and say l'chaim v'lebracha. And as the Rebbe is pouring wine to the next people, I don't know if he would turn and look at you again, but the Rebbe would say to you l'chaim v'lebracha, and then you would step away. In the later years, it just wasn't that way. The Rebbe told you l'chaim v'lebracha as he poured the wine into your cup. As a kid, my father said, remember, make a bracha, sip the wine, and he did it and I couldn't. He was from that generation. I was from that generation. And Kos Shel Bracha went on for hours. 2 hours. The Rebbe stood there as long as there were people. Everybody wanted Chai v'Lebracha. Rabbi Mentlik was the Rebbe's Saramashkim, and he used to pour back more wine. And you know the minig, right? As long as you add to the becher less than that's left, it's still considered Kos Shel Bracha. You add little bits at a time. When the Rebbe finished, the Rebbe used to ask Rabbi Groner, so and Label Groner would scream. The Rebbe wanted to make sure everybody got. And there was always 1 or 2 chachamim who came running out to my room. Where? Sometimes the Rebbe would finish making Kos Shel Bracha. The Rebbe would sit down. They would make Havdalah, and he would stand back up, and he would ask Rabbi Groner again, and a few Moshe would roll in, and the Rebbe would give them more wine. What happened then was interesting. It's Lubavitch lore. No one else is going to tell this to you. The Rebbe would take the tray for his becher, and he'd put it under the table and spray the wine that was left in the becher onto the floor. Then he would take a napkin, put it over the top of his becher. The Rebbe took wine with him. The whole year the Rebbe drank Kos Shel Bracha. Every Shabbos the Rebbe made Kiddush, the Rebbe used to drink Kos Shel Bracha. They would put a napkin on top of his cup. He put the dish upside down on top of his cup, and the Rebbe would hold it like this. The becher is here, on top was the dish, like this. In his left hand was a siddur, and that's how the Rebbe walked out of shul. Matzah Yom Tov, there's many pictures. The Rebbe was holding the cup of wine. He went with it. That's how the Seder was. That's how the Rebbe finished Matzah Yom Tov. But sometimes Matzah Shabbos, the Rebbe would stand up and hold the siddur and say V'yiteh lecha, and he would do it in such a way that at least one person next to him should be able to say V'yiteh lecha with him. You know that the Rebbe said that V'yiteh lecha you should do with somebody else in the same siddur, because you're giving brachas. You should give the brachas to another person. Anyway, that's pretty much how what I remember. I'm sure there's a lot that I'm missing, but this is Pesach and Lubavitch.